Hey guys, tonight we step quietly into a day so distant it might as well be a dream. A slow, gentle day in the life of a 16th century Korean royal baker. Imagine waking before the sun, before the palace hums with the weighty footsteps of royalty, when the world feels still and only the faintest whispers of steam curl from the wood fires in the royal kitchens. You probably won't survive a full day here without a strong stomach and a steady hand. This isn't just baking, it's an art that carries centuries of tradition, pressure, and some rather peculiar royal demands. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. While you settle in, maybe drop a comment below with your location and local time. It's fascinating to see who's joining this sleepy journey across centuries and continents. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake in the small quarters tucked just behind the grand royal kitchen, the air still cool with night's last breath. Outside, the palace is a sleeping giant, its elegant roofs silhouetted against the darkening sky. Your back aches just a little as you rise from the thin bedding, harder than the soft mattresses you'd probably pine for. But that's life for the palace artisans. The servants' quarters are a world apart from the glittering throne rooms, and your job demands focus long before the first bell calls the royals to breakfast. You pull on your simple cotton hanbok, a plain garment compared to the embroidered silks and brocades that will later flood these halls. Your breath makes tiny clouds in the cold air as you step toward the kitchen entrance, the smell of wood smoke and faint traces of last night's cooking already teasing your senses. The kitchen is vast, but in this pre-dawn hour, it's a quiet cavern filled mostly with shadows and the occasional flicker of a small fire already stoked by the night shift. Historians still argue whether royal bakers like you were considered mere servants or esteemed artisans in their own right. Official records mention royal kitchen attendants. But your work is so vital that you sometimes feel like a secret custodian of the dynasty's most delicate pleasures. You run your fingers along the rough stone wall, cool and reassuring, as you make your way to the hearth. Lighting fires is an art form itself, coaxing flame from damp wood and embers, and you move carefully so as not to startle the early morning calm. The kitchen begins to breathe with life. The hiss of water, heating in iron kettles, the rustle of wooden utensils, and the low murmur of a few fellow bakers, already stirring dough or sorting ingredients. The palace kitchen is a world inside a world, bustling when the sun finally rises, but now a sanctuary of quiet preparation. Outside, the courtiers and nobles remain curled in their silks, dreaming of embroidered robes and afternoon tea. Here, in the dim warmth, you hold the promise of the day's sweets, the rice cakes and pastries that will brighten the faces of kings and queens. You pause, taking a slow breath, and remind yourself that each day is a slow dance with tradition and taste, patience and precision. The weight of centuries rests lightly on your shoulders as you prepare to knead the first dough of the day under the watchful eyes of ancestors who surely still whisper from the palace walls. The morning light is still soft as you begin the ritual of gathering ingredients, a task that feels part treasure hunt, part quiet meditation. Your fingers brush against sacks of fine white rice flour stacked carefully against the kitchen's stone walls. This isn't just any rice flour. This comes from grains grown in the fertile paddies near the Han River, milled with patience and care. The royal kitchen spares no expense on quality. After all, the king deserves nothing less than the finest. You sift through the sacks, feeling the delicate powder slip through your fingers like a cool summer breeze. It smells faintly of earth and sunshine, a subtle reminder of distant fields swaying under an open sky. This rice flour will form the soft, chewy base of the tiok, the beloved rice cakes that the palace cherishes at every meal and ceremony. Nearby, jars of sweeteners sit in quiet rows, their contents shimmering with golden hues. You reach for a pot of honey harvested from the remote mountain beehives of Gangwon province, a prized ingredient prized not only for its sweetness, but also for its medicinal properties. The honey glides thick and slow from the wooden spoon, sticky like a secret promise. You remember reading that in some royal recipes, pine resin was added to enhance flavor, a curious addition that gives desserts a faintly piney aroma like a walk through a serene forest. Historians still argue whether this was a culinary innovation or a happy accident born of
As you
limited
prepare,
resources. You catch a glimpse of a small, worn scroll pinned discreetly near the pantry, a family recipe passed down through generations. The script is faded, but the instructions are clear. Mix with care, knead with patience, and bake with heart. You smile at the thought that every cake you make carries the imprint of bakers long gone, their hands guiding yours across the centuries. The palace kitchen, with all its grandeur and strict etiquette, hides these quiet moments of connection, the gentle hum of tradition vibrating beneath the day's busy surface. You pause for a moment, savoring the anticipation. Soon, the fire will crackle to life, and the dough will start to come alive under your touch. The first flickers of dawn are barely brushing the palace rooftops as you move to prepare the fire and tools, a slow, deliberate process that sets the rhythm for the entire day. The hearth is an ancient stone basin built deep into the kitchen's earthen floor, surrounded by carefully arranged stacks of seasoned wood. Lighting this fire is no mere flick of a match. It's a practiced ritual that demands patience, respect, and a gentle touch. You start by selecting kindling, small twigs and dried pine needles that catch flame easily but burn quickly. With a single spark struck from flint against steel, the first flames leap shyly to life, flickering like shy dancers awakening from a long rest. You coax them carefully, blowing softly to encourage the embers without smothering the fragile glow. The fire begins to grow steadily, crackling softly as it consumes the dry wood, filling the kitchen with a comforting warmth. Nearby, stone molds and wooden paddles wait patiently. The molds are smooth, shaped by generations of bakers, each curve and indentation designed to cradle the delicate rice cakes just so. The wooden paddles, worn by years of use, bear the faint scent of toasted grains and faint traces of honey from past batches. You pick one up, appreciating the simple beauty of tools that have served the palace quietly, away from the spotlight. Historians still argue whether these stone molds were imported from China during the Joseon dynasty or crafted locally, but either way, their design perfectly balances function and artistry. You notice the subtle differences between molds shaped for steaming versus those intended for baking, an important distinction that will influence today's sweets. Lighting the fire and preparing your tools is more than just getting ready to cook. It's a quiet meditation, a moment to ground yourself before the day unfolds. You watch the flames dance, their warmth spreading through the kitchen, mingling with the scent of pine smoke and faint ash. It's a comforting contrast to the chill lingering outside the palace walls. As the fire settles into a steady blaze, you use a small metal ladle to test the heat of the water in the nearby kettle. It's important to maintain just the right temperature for steaming, gentle enough to keep the rice cakes soft and tender, but hot enough to cook them thoroughly. Too fierce a flame, and the delicate cakes will toughen. Too weak, and they'll remain doughy and undercooked. It's a subtle balance that only years of experience can perfect. While you work, you catch sight of a small mouse darting across the floor, one of the palace's unofficial residents. The kitchen cats patrol silently, their green eyes glowing like lanterns in the half-light. You chuckle quietly, remembering how the cats often receive more respect in the kitchen than some junior bakers. They're expert mousers and sometimes taste testers, their sly antics weaving a layer of everyday charm into the grand palace routine. You carefully arrange the molds near the fire, ready for the dough that will soon be shaped and steamed. The kitchen's quiet warmth fills your chest with a gentle satisfaction. Soon, the humble ingredients you gathered will transform into treats fit for kings and queens, a daily miracle performed with patient hands and steady hearts. You move to the central wooden table, its surface worn smooth by years of kneading and rolling. Here, the real work begins, mixing the dough. The rice flour awaits, a fine, snowy mound that feels cool beneath your fingertips, while nearby, the honey and syrup glisten in their jars like captured sunlight. You scoop the flour into a large, shallow basin and pour in the sweet liquids, watching as the grains begin to absorb the sticky richness. Kneading the dough is a slow, rhythmic dance. Your hands press and fold, pushing the mixture into a soft, pliable mass. The texture is slightly sticky, but with gentle persistence it becomes smooth and elastic, much like the supple skin of a well-worn leather glove. The aroma that rises is a subtle blend of toasted grains and warm sweetness, delicate while waiting, deeply comforting. You tend to cleaning the tools, you breathe the familiar scrape and rinse of wooden paddles against stone sinks, grounding you in the present moment. It's a humble task, but one that keeps the kitchen humming smoothly, like a well-oiled machine quietly working behind the scenes. You glance at the faded calligraphy pinned nearby, a reminder from your master baker. Clean hands and tools keep the flavor pure. Historians still argue whether the palace bakers had designated cleaning rituals as spiritual acts or merely practical habits, but either way, this small devotion adds a peaceful rhythm to your work. The gentle sounds of water swishing over wood and stone are like a lullaby, blending with the soft crackle of the fire. Your mind wanders briefly to the curious practice of using silk cloths to strain liquids, a technique favored by royal chefs to ensure pure, clear honey or rice water in recipes. Silk, with its smooth texture and slight sheen, was considered the epitome of refinement. You imagine the delicate threads running between your fingers, as soft as a whisper, just like the subtle art of making the perfect rice cake. As the cakes finish steaming, you carefully lift the baskets, the wooden lids releasing a cloud of warm, fragrant vapor. The rice cakes gleam, soft and smooth, resting like little pillows on their leafy beds. You take one gently and test its texture, the perfect balance of tender and chewy, with a hint of sweetness that feels like a quiet celebration. You arrange the finished cakes on large trays lined with fresh leaves, their green contrast making the pale cakes look even more inviting. The rhythm of your work slows now, each movement deliberate and calm. These small treats will soon journey from the quiet kitchen to the bustling palace halls, where courtiers and royalty will savor them with polite smiles and appreciative murmurs. Outside, the morning sun climbs higher, casting long shadows through the lattice windows. You feel the warmth on your face, mingling with the kitchen's comforting heat. This slow pace, the gentle sounds and the subtle fragrances wrap around you like a soft blanket. A reminder that even in grand palaces, moments of quiet care create the most lasting memories. With the freshly steamed rice cakes resting on trays, your attention shifts to the delicate task of decoration. The palace expects not just delicious flavors, but also visual poetry, subtle artistry that transforms simple cakes into edible treasures. You reach for natural pigments, powdered azuki beans for a soft red, finely ground mugwort for a gentle green, and a hint of chrysanthemum petals crushed into golden dust. Mixing these pigments with a tiny amount of water, you dip a slender brush and begin to paint delicate designs on each cake surface. Your strokes are slow and deliberate, like a calligrapher crafting a poem. The patterns aren't just pretty, they echo seasonal symbols: plum blossoms for early spring, bamboo leaves for resilience, and clouds for dreams. Each motif carries a quiet meaning, a whisper of cultural stories passed down through generations. You recall that Korean bakers often use natural dyes not only for aesthetics but also for subtle medicinal properties, a tradition some scholars still debate whether was rooted in practical herbalism or gentle symbolism. The mugwort's mild bitterness, for example, was believed to calm the stomach, adding an extra layer of care to the cakes. While painting, you notice a small moth fluttering near the window, drawn to the warm light. In palace lore, moths were considered messengers of the ancestors, gentle spirits watching over the household. You smile softly, imagining the moth as a tiny guardian accompanying you through this quiet morning ritual. The decorated cakes dry slowly on bamboo mats, their colors deepening with the warmth of the kitchen. You take a moment to wipe your hands on a clean cloth, feeling the familiar texture beneath your fingertips. The day's pace is unhurried, filled with small acts of patience and precision. As the trays fill, you start organizing the cakes into groups based on their destined use, some for royal ceremonies, others for informal gatherings or personal gifts. This sorting is as much about care as it is about presentation. You arrange them with the same mindful attention given to arranging flowers or folding silk robes. Outside, the palace courtyard hums softly with the distant sounds of birds and the rustle of leaves. The gentle morning light filters through wooden lattice screens, casting dappled shadows across the stone floor. The kitchen feels like a world apart, a quiet sanctuary where time moves just a little slower. You pause to breathe in the mingling scents: sweet rice, pine smoke, and the faint floral notes from the painted petals, and feel a soothing calm settle over you. This slow day in the royal bakery is a gentle reminder that even the smallest acts, done with care now and that the rice cakes are painted and resting, you shift your focus to preparing the tea that will accompany them during the palace's mid-morning ceremony. You fetch a small bundle of dried chrysanthemum flowers from a wooden box, their pale yellow petals fragile and fragrant. Brewing chrysanthemum tea is an ancient practice, prized for its calming qualities and subtle floral taste, perfect for softening the bustling palace mood. You warm the water over the embers, watching tiny bubbles form and break like whispered secrets. Pouring the hot water over the flowers in a delicate porcelain pot, you inhale the steam's gentle aroma, a soothing mix of warmth and blossom. It's one of those simple pleasures that feels like a private gift, a moment of peace amid the palace's quiet bustle. Historians still argue whether chrysanthemum tea was originally a medicinal concoction or a luxury beverage for nobles, but either way, it's a calming presence on slow days like today. You sip a small cup, its warmth spreading through your chest, softening the edges of your busy thoughts. While waiting for the tea to steep, you glance toward the low wooden shelves lined with ceramic jars containing various ingredients: pine nuts, sesame seeds, jujube fruits. Each has a story, a place in royal cuisine, and often a whispered legend about health or fortune. For instance, pine nuts were believed to sharpen the mind, a handy perk for palace scholars enduring long lectures. You remember that palace bakers were sometimes tasked with subtly adjusting recipes to reflect seasonal changes or the current royal mood, a tradition that historians still debate for its origins. Maybe today's batch of cakes, lightly sweetened and delicately painted, is meant to soothe a restless queen or inspire a thoughtful prince. As the tea steeps, you hear the soft footsteps of palace attendants passing by, their quiet chatter blending with the kitchen's gentle symphony of simmering and steaming. The moment feels suspended, a peaceful bubble where time slows and small rituals gain significance. You pour the tea into tiny cups, placing them carefully on lacquered trays alongside the rice cakes. The presentation is understated but elegant, a quiet harmony of taste, scent, and sight designed to cradle the palace's delicate energy. This pairing of tea and cake isn't just nourishment, it's a gentle pause, a mindful breath in the palace's unfolding day. Outside, a soft breeze carries the faint scent of blooming magnolias through the window, mingling with the kitchen's warmth. You take a final sip, savoring the subtle sweetness and floral notes, ready to move forward with the day's next quiet task. With the tea ceremony preparations complete, you turn your attention to the storage and preservation of the remaining rice cakes. Though they're best enjoyed fresh, the palace requires a steady supply, so you carefully wrap some in thin layers of bamboo leaves. These natural wrappers lend a faint earthy aroma and keep the cakes moist without overpowering their delicate flavors. The act of wrapping is slow and precise, a gentle folding that feels almost meditative. You tuck each cake snugly, the soft leaves folding over like a protective blanket. There's a soothing rhythm to this work. Fold, tuck, press, and set aside. It's a quiet art, one that has been refined over generations to balance protection and breathability. Historians still debate whether bamboo leaves were preferred mainly for their scent or for their antimicrobial properties, but both seem to play a role. Either way, these green bundles look like little gifts from the forest, ready to be delivered throughout the palace. As you finish the last bundle, a soft knock interrupts your thoughts. One of the palace scribes enters, carrying a scroll wrapped in silk. He has a gentle smile, and you recognize him as a friend who often brings poetry and news from the court's quieter corners. He offers you a verse about the seasons, a thoughtful nod to the gentle cycle you've been living today in the kitchen. You smile and accept, reading quietly as the scribe lingers, sharing a few more lines about moonlit nights and the slow dance of clouds. The exchange reminds you that even in this small, seemingly isolated kitchen, the rhythms of art, nature, and human connection weave through every task. The rice cakes, the tea, the poetry, they're all threads in the tapestry of palace life. Outside, a distant gong sounds softly, marking the transition to the next phase of the day. You fold the scroll carefully and set it aside, feeling the calm stillness linger like a gentle breath before the next wave of activity. You take a moment to enjoy the warmth of the kitchen, the soft light filtering through the wooden lattices, and the faint scent of steamed rice and pine. It's a quiet pause, a slow moment stitched into the palace's busy fabric. After the scribe departs, you prepare for the delivery of the rice cakes to the palace's dining hall. You gather the wrapped bundles onto a sturdy wooden tray, their green bamboo leaf coverings lending a natural, understated elegance. Carrying this tray through the narrow corridors, you navigate the maze-like palace with practiced ease, mindful of the soft footsteps of servants and courtiers moving in the morning light. The halls smell faintly of polished wood and incense, a calm atmosphere that contrasts gently with the lively chatter you hear growing closer. You pause briefly to admire the intricate wooden screens, carved with swirling clouds and cranes, symbols of longevity and peace, fitting companions to the treats you've carefully crafted. Historians still debate the extent to which palace kitchens influence daily life beyond meals, but it's clear these quiet deliveries help maintain the palace's serene flow. You wonder if the courtiers notice the care behind these simple pleasures, or if the rice cakes are just another sweet detail in their day. In the dining hall, you set the trays on a lacquered table, ready for the noble guests who will savor these gentle confections alongside their tea. The room is airy, lit by soft sunlight filtering through paper windows, and decorated with scrolls of calligraphy and hanging silk banners. You watch as attendants begin arranging the cakes on delicate porcelain plates, the patterns you painted earlier catching the light softly. The subtle artistry seems to invite quiet appreciation, a whisper of the seasons and the careful hands that shaped each piece. As the noble guests settle in, the soft murmur of their voices creates a peaceful backdrop. You imagine the slow unfolding of conversations, the gentle clink of porcelain, and the shared delight in these small, sweet moments. Returning to the kitchen, you feel a gentle satisfaction, a quiet sense of purpose in your slow, deliberate work. The day is still unfolding, but for now, the palace holds a calm and gentle rhythm, punctuated by these tiny acts of care. Outside, the sky is brightening toward midday, the soft warmth a reminder that even slow days carry the promise of new moments. You take a breath, ready to move forward with the kitchen's steady pulse. Back in the kitchen, the afternoon light filters through the paper windows, casting soft patterns on the wooden floorboards. You settle into a quieter rhythm now, preparing ingredients for the next batch of palace sweets, a task requiring patience and a gentle hand. Today, it's sweetened mung bean jelly, a delicate treat that demands careful soaking and grinding of the beans. You begin by rinsing the mung beans, feeling their smooth surfaces slip between your fingers as you wash away the dust of storage. Soaking them overnight softens the beans into a creamy mass, which you'll soon grind finely to extract their natural sweetness and create that translucent, shimmering jelly. Historians still argue about the exact origins of mung bean desserts in Korean royal cuisine, some tracing them to ancient medicinal practices, others to early royal indulgences. Either way, the mung bean's subtle flavor and cooling properties make it a favored choice for soothing the body, especially during warm days. As you work, you remember a quirky palace tradition. Bakers sometimes infuse their sweets with a hint of pine resin, a practice believed to ward off insects and add a faint woodland aroma. You chuckle softly, imagining the royal guests' puzzled expressions if they ever detected a hint of forest in their desserts. The grinding stone feels cool under your palms as you crush the soaked beans, the slow, repetitive motion lulling your thoughts into a peaceful haze. You glance outside where a gentle breeze stirs the courtyard's bamboo grove, its rustling leaves whispering secrets of the day. Preparing mung bean jelly is a slow, delicate process requiring precise timing and careful attention to texture. Too much stirring, and the jelly becomes cloudy. Too little, and it won't set properly. You find comfort in this balance, the subtle push and pull between control and surrender. Soon, the jelly mixture will steam gently, setting into translucent sheets that gleam like morning dew. For now, you focus on the soothing rhythm of grinding, the soft scrape of stone against stone blending with the muted sounds of palace life beyond the kitchen walls. With the mung bean paste ready, you move on to the delicate process of shaping the jelly into small, elegant pieces fit for the royal palate. You pour the mixture into shallow wooden molds, each carved with subtle floral designs, a final touch of artistry that the palace expects even from the simplest treats. The molds sit steaming over a gentle fire, and as the jelly sets, you watch the translucent sheets take on a shimmering glass-like quality. It's fascinating handling to consider how the use of pine needles as the jelly is tender and prone to sticking, both aesthetic and practical purposes. Historians still debate whether this tradition originated from an effort to add subtle flavor or simply as a natural antibacterial measure, but either way, it adds a fresh, pine-scented note to the dessert experience. While working, you reflect on the subtle seasonal symbolism behind these pine needles, evergreen reminders of endurance and purity, themes that resonate deeply in the palace's rituals. The soft rustle of the needles under the jelly feels like a quiet song, a soothing backdrop to your afternoon tasks. Suddenly, a palace musician walks in, carrying a small bamboo flute. He offers a few soft notes, playing a slow, melodic tune that seems to weave into the kitchen's ambiance. You smile, feeling the blend of food and music create a peaceful harmony that softens even the busiest of days. You return to your work, gently lifting each jelly piece and placing it on porcelain plates decorated with hand-painted chrysanthemums. The simple elegance of the presentation reflects the palace's reverence for nature and quiet beauty. Outside, the sun dips lower, casting warm golden hues across the courtyard. The day feels rich with gentle activity and mindful craftsmanship, each small moment a thread woven into the larger tapestry of palace life. As the afternoon wanes, you begin preparing a special honey glaze to brush onto a batch of sweet rice pastries destined for the evening feast. Honey was a prized ingredient in the palace, expensive, sticky, and treasured for its natural sweetness and medicinal properties. The way it glistened in the sun always reminded you of captured light. You carefully warm the honey over a low flame, watching it melt into a smooth amber syrup that smells faintly of wildflowers and pine. It's slow work, too much heat, and the honey can burn or crystallize. Too little, and it won't spread evenly. You lean into the rhythm, brushing each pastry with gentle, deliberate strokes. Historians still argue whether honey was more valued for its flavor or for its supposed healing powers in palace medicine. Either way, its inclusion in desserts was considered a luxurious flourish, signaling care and refinement. While glazing, you recall a curious palace custom. During certain festivals, bakers would add a pinch of powdered ginger to their honey mixtures, believed to bring warmth and good fortune. You find this odd yet endearing, a tiny wink from the past that connects sweet food with well-wishing. The pastries glisten under your brush, their surfaces shimmering like tiny jewels. You arrange them on bamboo trays, ready for the evening's procession to the royal dining chamber. Beyond the kitchen, the palace begins to glow with lantern light, soft and flickering, casting long shadows across the courtyards. The evening heralds a slower pace, the culmination of the day's gentle labors. You pause to breathe in the fragrant mix of honey, steamed rice, and pine that fills the air, a cozy, comforting scent that feels like a warm hug after a long day. It's a quiet pleasure, this blend of nature and nurture, craftsmanship and care. As twilight deepens, you look forward to the last tasks ahead, the final offerings to the royal table before night falls softly over the palace walls. With the honey-glazed pastries set aside to cool, you turn your attention to tidying the kitchen for the evening. Cleaning here is a slow, mindful process. No loud clattering or rushed movements. You carefully wipe down wooden surfaces with damp cloths scented faintly with rice vinegar, a natural cleaner that leaves a subtle tang and keeps pests at bay. You collect used utensils, each carved from wood or bone, worn smooth by years of gentle handling. The palace's tools are cherished and cared for, passed down through generations of bakers who have perfected their crafts. You sometimes wonder if these humble objects hold whispers of the past, like quiet witnesses to centuries of slow, measured work. Historians still debate the extent to which palace kitchens were strictly hierarchical versus cooperative spaces, but it's clear that respect and tradition govern every corner. You recall the quiet nods shared between bakers, a subtle language of trust and shared expertise. As you arrange the last bowls and trays, You notice a small patch of sunlight slipping through the window lattice, illuminating a scattering of sesame seeds left from earlier. You scoop them up, enjoying their nutty aroma and smooth texture, a tiny, satisfying detail in your day. Outside, the evening breeze carries the scent of blooming lotus flowers from the palace pond, mingling with the fading warmth of the day. The sounds of distant
You
laughter
sit
and
for a
soft
brief
music
moment on
drift
a
through
low
the
wooden
air,
bench,
a gentle
savoring the
reminder of the
quiet
palace's
calm
life
that
beyond
settles
the kitchen
after a
walls.
day of steady work. Your hands still bear the faint scent of honey and rice, comforting reminders of the care woven into each step. As night approaches, the palace feels like a living poem. Each ingredient, each task, a verse in the slow, soothing rhythm of royal life. The last task of your day is to prepare a small offering for the royal ancestors, a quiet ritual that closes the cycle of palace life. You select a few of the freshest rice cakes and mung bean jellies, arranging them carefully on a lacquered tray alongside incense sticks and a delicate porcelain cup of sweetened tea. This moment is slow and reverent. You light the incense, watching the thin tendrils of smoke curl upward, carrying prayers and gratitude to the unseen. The soft glow of candlelight flickers against the polished wood, lending a gentle warmth to the quiet room. Historians still argue how much of these rituals were formalized tradition versus personal acts of devotion, but their importance in palace life is undeniable. This closing ceremony feels like a breath of peace after the day's steady bustle, a moment to honor those who came before and those who will follow. As you stand back and observe your humble offering, you feel a calm satisfaction, a sense of connection that transcends the busy hours, linking past, present, and future through simple acts of care. The palace has quieted now. The gentle hum of distant voices fades, replaced by the soft chirping of night insects and the whisper of the breeze through the pines. You gather your tools and wrap the last remnants of ingredients, preparing to rest your hands and mind. Before you leave the kitchen, you take a final look around. The warmth of the hearth, the faint scent of steamed rice lingering in the air, and the neatly arranged trays waiting to be enjoyed tomorrow. It's a comforting scene, a reminder that even in the slowest days, your work matters. You step outside into the cool night, the moon casting silver light over the palace rooftops. The day's gentle rhythms settle within you, like a soft lullaby, carrying you toward restful sleep. Now, as the palace slips into quiet slumber, let your own mind soften and slow. Imagine the gentle warmth of the kitchen fading into the cool embrace of night, the scents of rice and pine dissolving into a calm breeze. Each breath you take is a step deeper into tranquility, a soothing rhythm as steady as the slow days of the royal baker. There is comfort in these small acts, the shaping of dough, the careful wrapping of treats, the quiet moments of reflection. They remind us that even the simplest work can hold grace and meaning. So let your thoughts drift gently, like the curling smoke from a fading incense stick, and allow your body to relax fully. Tonight, you rest wrapped in the slow, steady pulse of a world that moves softly and deliberately. No rush, no clamor, just the quiet unfolding of night and the promise of peaceful dreams. Sleep well, knowing that tomorrow will bring another slow day, another chance to move gently through the rhythms of life. The first light of dawn has yet to break when you quietly enter the palace kitchen, the cool air still heavy with the night's rest. Your breath forms soft clouds in the dim morning light, filtering through the paper windows. This is when the kitchen truly awakens, before the bustle of the day begins, before the palace stirs to life. You start by kindling the wood fire, the gentle crackle and warm glow, promising a slow, comforting rhythm to the day ahead. Gathering fresh ingredients is a delicate ritual in itself.
You handle bundles of rice stalks, freshly harvested and resting in woven baskets, their scent faintly sweet and earthy. There's a calmness in these early moments, a quiet that lets you focus on the tactile details, the rough texture of rice stalks, the soft weight of wild herbs carefully picked from the palace gardens. The wood stove hums gently as it warms, filling the kitchen with the scent of burning pine. You place a large iron pot over the flames, ready to soak the rice that will soon be milled into flour. This slow soak is essential, softening the grains and coaxing out their natural sweetness, setting the foundation for the day's baking. Historians still argue whether the palace kitchens operated more as regimented workshops or cozy communal spaces. Your own experience feels like a mix of both, disciplined yet intimate, where each step is purposeful but laced with quiet companionship. A curious fact: royal bakers were often entrusted with secret recipes passed down through generations, locked away like precious heirlooms. You smile thinking of how a simple grain of rice carries the weight of centuries. As the fire grows steadier and the morning mist begins to lift outside, you settle into your day's work, knowing that every careful action helps shape not just food, but a small piece of history. You move next to the stone mill, its heavy wheels worn smooth by countless rotations over decades. The rhythmic grinding of rice against stone creates a steady, hypnotic sound that fills the kitchen, a soft mechanical heartbeat that sets the pace for your work. You take a moment to appreciate this ancient tool, so simple yet indispensable, turning raw grains into the fine flour needed for delicate rice cakes. Grinding rice by hand is a slow and laborious task, requiring both strength and patience. You carefully feed soaked rice into the hopper, turning the large wooden lever with a steady, measured pace. The coarse flour falls gently into a woven basket below, ready for further refinement. Interestingly, some scholars debate whether palace mills were operated continuously throughout the day or reserved for specific baking sessions. Your own rhythm suggests a balance: long grinding stretches followed by periods of rest, allowing the kitchen to breathe between bursts of activity. The process itself is soothing, almost meditative. You listen to the quiet crunch of rice as it meets the stone, feeling the subtle vibrations through the wood handle. It's a tactile reminder of centuries-old craftsmanship, a link between your hands and those of countless bakers before you. A quirky tidbit from palace lore: some bakers believed that whispering kind words to the millstones would ensure finer flour and sweeter rice cakes. While historians remain skeptical, you can't help but smile at the thought, perhaps a touch of magic in the monotony. As the morning light strengthens, casting soft shadows across the kitchen floor, you continue grinding, knowing this slow beginning is vital to the day's success. Each turn of the mill brings you closer to the perfect flour, and with it, another chance to create. After setting the rice flour aside to rest, you prepare to gather the wild herbs and flowers destined to infuse the palace desserts and teas with delicate seasonal flavors. Stepping out into the palace gardens, you're greeted by the soft rustling of leaves and the faint fragrance of blossoms heavy with morning dew. The garden is a patchwork of carefully tended plants, some familiar, others rare and prized for their culinary and medicinal qualities. You move slowly among beds of chrysanthemum petals, wild mint, and sweet osmanthus flowers, plucking just the right handfuls with a gentle touch. These ingredients will later be woven into syrups, teas, and dough, adding subtle notes that elevate simple sweets into artful delicacies. The air is thick with a quiet, natural perfume, a soothing contrast to the warm, starchy smells waiting back in the kitchen. Interestingly, Historians still debate how much the palace bakers themselves influenced the choice of herbs versus following strict prescriptions from palace herbalists and court physicians. Either way, the link between food and health is undeniable here. Each flavor chosen not just for taste, but for balance and harmony. A charming old story whispers that jasmine blossoms were once thought to bring peaceful dreams when eaten at night, an appealing thought when you consider the palace's often restless nobles. Whether true or not, the idea fits neatly with your work, a gentle reminder that food here is both sustenance and comfort. You carefully bundle your harvest, mindful not to bruise the fragile petals or leaves, and carry it back through the serene gardens to the kitchen's cool shadows. The slow, deliberate gathering of these fragrant gifts feels like a quiet meditation, a moment of connection between the earth and the palace's refined rituals. As you enter the kitchen again, the day's work continues, enriched now with the soft scents of the garden mingling with the warm aroma of rice and honey. Back in the kitchen, you prepare to mix the sweet rice dough, a process that feels like a quiet conversation between your hands and the ingredients. You start by sifting the freshly milled rice flour, watching fine white dust fall like soft snow onto the wooden table. The texture is silky to the touch, far from the gritty grind it was moments ago, and promises the tender chewiness the royal palate prefers. Adding warm water, you gently knead the dough, feeling it gradually soften and come together in your palms. The sensation is oddly comforting, like kneading a slow-moving cloud. You press and fold with steady rhythm, coaxing elasticity and smoothness. This dough will form the basis of countless treats, each bite a small story in itself. A mainstream fact: in 16th century Korea, the rice cakes made here weren't just food. They were integral to rituals, festivals, and the delicate social etiquette of the court. The art of kneading and shaping them was as important as their remembering a quirky detail. Some bakers believe that the time of day and the baker's mood subtly affected the dough's quality. While historians still argue whether this was genuine superstition or early food science, you can't deny the calming effect of your slow, deliberate movements. The dough now smooth and pliable, you sprinkle in finely chopped wild herbs you gathered earlier, tiny bursts of fragrance hidden inside the soft mass. These subtle additions bring a quiet complexity, transforming the humble rice dough into something more nuanced, more royal. As your hands move on, shaping and folding, you imagine the centuries of bakers before you, feeling the same textures and hopes. This slow, tactile ritual is both work and meditation, a gentle reminder that every small action builds towards something beautiful. Now that your dough is perfectly kneaded, it's time to shape the rice cakes, a task that blends precision, tradition, and a touch of creativity. You begin by dividing the smooth dough into small portions, each one carefully rolled into soft, round balls. Your fingers move gently but confidently, forming each piece with an ease that comes from countless days doing this exact work. Each shape carries meaning. Some are simple discs for everyday snacks, while others are intricately pressed with floral patterns or folded into delicate triangles for special occasions. You remember a curious palace custom. Certain shapes were believed to bring good fortune or health to the royal family, a belief that added a quiet reverence to your work. Historians still debate how widespread these symbolic shapes were outside the palace, but within these walls, tradition runs deep. You use wooden molds carved with seasonal motifs, a chrysanthemum here, a lotus blossom there, to imprint gentle patterns into the dough. The soft texture holds the designs perfectly, and you can't help but admire the small artistry in each piece. It's slow, steady work, almost like drawing with your hands, and it demands your full attention. One quirky fact lingers in your mind. Some bakers whispered that if you shaped cakes while thinking happy thoughts, the flavor would somehow improve, a superstition never officially recorded but fondly remembered. You hum softly to yourself, thinking it can't hurt to try. As you place the shaped cakes on woven trays lined with bamboo leaves, the kitchen fills with a quiet anticipation. These small creations will soon be steamed or baked, transformed by heat into the tender delicacies cherished by the court. The day moves gently forward, each carefully shaped cake a little promise of sweetness and ritual, a slow dance of texture, flavor, and tradition. With the rice cakes shaped and resting, you turn your attention to preparing the herbal-infused syrups, the delicate liquids that will lend a whisper of sweetness and floral aroma to the finished treats. You begin by selecting small copper pots, their smooth surfaces warm under your hands as you pour in water and handfuls of the fragrant herbs and flowers gathered earlier, osmanthus, chrysanthemum, and a few sprigs of mint. The pots are set over gentle flames, and you watch as the water begins to simmer, releasing tendrils of fragrant steam that curl lazily toward the wooden rafters. The scent is soothing, a natural perfume that mingles softly with the underlying warmth of the kitchen. You stir slowly, mindful of the syrup's slow reduction. Too much heat, and the delicate floral notes will be lost. Too little, and the syrup won't thicken properly. Historians still argue whether these syrups were used mainly for flavoring or also for their perceived medicinal properties, but you know the palace valued both. The bittersweet balance of flavors was said to harmonize the body's energies, an idea that fits well with the overall culinary philosophy here. A quirky detail. Some bakers preferred using honey gathered from royal apiaries, believing the bees' diet of palace flowers made the syrup subtly more refined. You smile at the thought of tiny royal bees buzzing about, carrying secrets in their nectar. As the syrup thickens, you carefully strain it through fine cloth, ensuring a silky, clear finish. This final touch will soon be drizzled over steamed rice cakes, adding a shimmering glaze that catches the light and teases the tongue. You pause for a moment, inhaling the fragrant steam, and feel the satisfaction that comes from such slow, purposeful work, the kind that turns simple ingredients into quiet moments of palace luxury. The sweet syrup is ready, and now it's time to steam the rice cakes. A crucial step that transforms your dough from soft and pliable
Steaming
into
rice cakes
tender,
was
chewy
not just a cooking
delicacies
technique,
that melt
but an
gently
art
in
in
the
itself.
mouth, honed
You
over
carefully
centuries within
arrange the
palace
shaped
walls.
cakes on perforated wooden
Historians
trays
still
lined
debate
with
the precise
fragrant
origins
bamboo
of these
leaves,
methods,
each one
with some
spaced just
suggesting
so to allow
influences
the
from
steam to
neighboring
circulate
dynasties,
evenly.
while others argue for purely indigenous innovation. A quirky palace tidbit. It was considered good luck if the steam escaped through the lid's vent in a slow, steady plume rather than a sudden burst, thought to signal a smooth day ahead. You chuckle softly, imagining bakers past, watching the steam like court astrologers. After what feels like an eternity wrapped in warmth and the soft hiss of steam, you lift the lid, revealing rows of glossy, translucent rice cakes. Their surfaces glisten like morning dew, soft yet resilient under your fingers. You carefully transfer them to serving trays, mindful not to disturb their delicate shapes. This gentle alchemy, from raw grain to fragrant flour to steamed cake, is the heart of your day's work, a slow unfolding of flavors and textures that has nourished palace life for generations. With the steamed rice cakes cooled just enough to handle, you begin the final, tender step, brushing each piece lightly with the herbal syrup you prepared earlier. The syrup clings to the surface, catching the soft palace light and imparting a subtle sheen. You move slowly, carefully, treating each cake as if it were a tiny treasure. This glazing is more than decoration. It enhances flavor and texture, giving a gentle stickiness that makes the cakes so satisfying to bite into. You recall a mainstream historical note. Palace chefs were masters of balance, always aiming to please the royal palate with nuanced sweetness rather than overwhelming sugariness. Historians still argue whether this syrup brushing was a universal practice or a luxury reserved for special occasions and high-ranking courtiers. In any case, today's batch is destined for a mid-morning banquet, a quiet moment of indulgence amid palace duties. An amusing palace legend says bakers who brush syrup while humming traditional lullabies produce sweeter, luckier treats. You hum a soft tune, imagining this practice as a way to pass time and ease the day's work, a small kindness amid the kitchen's heat. The cakes now glisten with syrup, their surfaces sticky but inviting. You carefully arrange them on ornate trays, garnishing some with a sprinkle of crushed pine nuts or sesame seeds for extra texture and a hint of earthiness. The finished products seem to glow softly, promising delicate pleasure and a brief escape from palace formality. Your slow, deliberate work has transformed humble ingredients into edible art, a sweet, ephemeral joy for those privileged enough to taste it. The trays of glazed rice cakes are ready to be served, but first they must be carefully transported to the banquet hall, a spacious, serene room filled with soft silk cushions and low wooden tables, where nobles gather for their mid-morning refreshment. You carry the trays with steady hands, mindful of every step, knowing that a single jostle could mar the delicate arrangement. As you enter the hall, the gentle murmur of courtiers and the faint rustle of silk greet you. The room is cool and quiet, a perfect contrast to the warmth and bustle of the kitchen. You place the trays before the seated guests, who nod appreciatively at the sight of the shimmering cakes and the faint scent of herbs lingering in the air. Historically, such moments were about more than just food. They reinforce social bonds and showcase the palace's refined taste and cultural sophistication. Historians still argue whether these small banquets were primarily for enjoyment or also served subtle political purposes, a way to smooth tensions and affirm alliances. A light-hearted palace tale suggests that a particularly clumsy courtier once tried to sneak an extra rice cake into his sleeve, only to be caught by the sharp-eyed kitchen mistress. The moral, whispered in jest, was never to underestimate the watchful eyes of palace staff. After serving, you retreat quietly to the kitchen, where the steady rhythm of your work resumes. The day is far from over, and the kitchen's slow dance of preparation, patience, and care continues, weaving together the flavors and rituals that make palace life both challenging and quietly beautiful. Back in the kitchen, the afternoon brings a shift in rhythm as you prepare for the day's next round of baking, a quieter time focused on creating smaller, more delicate confections for the royal children's afternoon tea. You gather soft, glutinous rice flour and gently blend it with a fragrant honey infusion, aiming for a batter that will steam into tender, cloud-like puffs. The kitchen feels cooler now, the morning heat fading, replaced by a gentle calm, broken only by the occasional clink of porcelain and the soft murmur of distant palace life. You pause, enjoying the brief respite, the familiar smells wrapping around you like a mainstream fact. Sweets for children were carefully crafted to be mild and nourishing, reflecting a Confucian emphasis on moderation and care. The court's bakers took pride in creating treats that were as wholesome as they were delightful. A quirky historical tidbit recalls that some bakers believed the shape of the sweet, often tiny animals or flowers, could influence a child's temperament, an idea still debated by historians as either charming superstition or early childhood psychology. You prepare the steamer trays and pour the batter with steady hands, humming softly to yourself. The slow cooking process demands patience, but you welcome the quiet, repetitive motions as a form of meditation amid the palace's constant activity. These little cakes, light as air and sweet as a whispered secret, will soon bring smiles and gentle delight, a subtle joy nestled within the day's steady, slow unfolding. While the delicate cakes steam, you take a moment to tidy your workspace, smoothing flour dust from the wooden counters and wiping the copper pots until they gleam softly in the afternoon light. The kitchen is a sanctuary of quiet order where every tool and ingredient has its place, and the gentle rhythm of preparation brings a calmness you welcome. You notice the faint aroma of jasmine drifting in from the palace gardens, a soothing scent that mingles with the lingering sweetness of your treats. It's a small luxury, one that palace bakers cherish, those brief moments when the outside world and the kitchen's warmth overlap, creating a peaceful harmony. Historically, the royal kitchens were known not just for their food, but also for maintaining strict cleanliness and ritual purity, reflecting broader Confucian ideals. Historians still debate how much these practices influenced the kitchen's daily flow or if they served more symbolic roles. A quirky note: some bakers believed that humming a specific melody while cleaning could invite good fortune, a charming tradition passed down through generations, though no one could quite agree on which tune was luckiest. As you finish tidying, the soft whistle of the steamer signals the cakes are ready. You lift the lid carefully, releasing a gentle cloud of fragrant steam, and arrange the fluffy puffs on a porcelain platter, their pale surfaces dusted with a hint of crushed pine nuts for texture and scent. This quiet interlude, a blend of work and mindfulness, reminds you that the slow moments are just as important as the busy ones in the palace's intricate dance of food and ritual. The afternoon wanes gently, and as the light softens, you begin preparing the ingredients for the evening's special bread, yakwa, a honey-soaked fried delicacy treasured by the royal family. You sift fragrant wheat flour and mix it carefully with sesame oil and a touch of cinnamon, recalling how this rich treat was reserved for festive occasions and important guests. Your hands move with practiced ease, kneading the dough until it feels just right, soft but firm, pliable without stickiness. You smile to yourself, remembering a quirky palace anecdote. Some bakers swore yakwa dough improved if mixed under the light of a full moon, though historians remain skeptical about this lunar lore. The kitchen feels cooler now, the day's warmth fading, replaced by a soft hush broken only by the occasional distant footsteps or muted conversation from the palace halls. You work slowly, savoring the gentle transition from bustling morning to quiet evening. A well-known fact, yakwa has been part of Korean royal cuisine for centuries, symbolizing sweetness and prosperity. Historians still argue whether its origins trace back to Buddhist temple kitchens or earlier folk traditions, but its enduring popularity is undeniable. You carefully roll out the dough using wooden molds to imprint intricate floral patterns before cutting each piece into elegant shapes. This slow, detailed work connects you to generations of bakers who pass down not just recipes but an art form. As you prepare the oil for frying, you reflect on the balance between tradition and craft, patience and precision. A quiet reminder that even the most sumptuous palace treats start with humble, deliberate hands. You carefully lower the patterned dough pieces into the warm sesame oil, the quiet kitchen filling with a soft, gentle bubbling as each piece fries to a golden perfection. The aroma is rich and comforting, nutty sesame mingling with the faintest hint of cinnamon, a scent that speaks of celebration and careful craftsmanship. As the yakwa crisps slowly, You use a fine slotted spoon to turn each piece with precision, mindful to avoid breaking their delicate floral edges. The process is
Historically,
slow and
frying
soothing,
was a
almost
luxury in palace
meditative,
kitchens
as the
due to the
kitchen
fuel and
fills
oil
with the soft
required,
sounds of
making
sizzling
yakwa a
oil and
special
the
treat
quiet
rather than
hiss
an
of
everyday
steam.
snack.
Historians still debate the exact evolution of frying techniques in royal cuisine, with some suggesting influence from trade routes that brought new ingredients and ideas. A quirky tidbit: legend has it that bakers who accidentally dropped yakwa into the oil were expected to eat the whole batch themselves, a bittersweet punishment that no one seemed eager to face. Once fried, you transfer the golden pieces to trays lined with absorbent cloth, allowing excess oil to drain. Then comes the final step, soaking them briefly in a honeyed syrup infused with ginger and jujube, giving each bite a tender sweetness beneath its crisp exterior. This slow, deliberate rhythm of frying, draining, and soaking feels like a quiet dance, one where every moment counts and every movement connects you to a centuries-old tradition of palace culinary art. With the yakwa dripping gently from their honey bath, you carefully arrange them on lacquered trays, their golden petals shimmering under the soft glow of lantern light. The sticky sweetness clings lightly to your fingers as you work, the scent of ginger and jujube weaving through the kitchen air like a whispered promise of comfort and celebration. You imagine the royal family gathering in the evening, their fingers reaching for these delicate treats after a long day of court affairs. The thought makes you smile, knowing your work brings a moment of quiet pleasure amid palace formality. A mainstream fact, yakwa was often served during ancestral rites and special ceremonies, symbolizing respect and the hope for prosperity. Historians still debate how much of the recipe remained consistent over the centuries, with some suggesting subtle regional variations influenced by palace cooks. A quirky palace myth claims that the best yakwa are those made with a little extra honey stolen from the bees kept in palace gardens, a secret no baker would dare admit aloud. You chuckle softly, imagining the buzz of tiny royal bees being the true chefs behind this sweetness. The kitchen's pace slows now, the day's hustle fading into the gentle hum of evening. You clean your tools with care, the ritual winding down, the room cooler and softer, a quiet sanctuary until tomorrow's first light and fresh tasks call you again. The palace settles into a hushed calm as twilight deepens, and you take a moment to reflect on the day's slow, steady work. The scents of honey, jasmine, and steamed rice linger in the air, wrapping the kitchen in a soft embrace. Outside, the garden's lanterns flicker gently, casting long shadows on the polished wooden floors. You sit quietly on a low stool, hands still warm from kneading dough, and feel the soothing weight of routine settle around you. Preparing food for royalty may seem grand, but much of it comes down to patience, precision, and finding quiet moments of mindfulness amid the bustle. Historians still debate how much palace bakers influenced wider Korean cuisine, with some arguing their techniques and ingredients trickled down slowly through society, while others believe royal kitchens remain closely guarded secrets. A charming tale from Palace Whispers tells of a baker who once accidentally added too much honey to a batch, creating a new favorite treat that became an unexpected legend. It's a reminder that even mistakes can lead to sweetness in life. You rise slowly, stretching tired muscles, knowing tomorrow will bring a new day filled with familiar rituals and new challenges. The kitchen is quiet now, but tomorrow's bread and sweets will once again fill these walls with gentle warmth and timeless tradition.